We don't have no crimes and withholds. We don't want no auditing. No forced confessions on the meters. Davey, leave them kids alone. Hey, Miscavige, leave them kids alone. All in all, Davey, you like to think you're a god. All in all, you're just another religious fraud. There are so many things wrong in this world, but there are few things as wrong as child abuse, exploitation, and trafficking. Imagine being a child who's been taken away from your parents, forced to live with other children in deplorable conditions, forced to do things that inherently, instinctively, you know are wrong. You're punished when you cry, when you refuse or rebel or show any emotion. In our real world, we would believe that our parents, or that someone, would be looking for us. Someone we hope would save us. Now imagine that you live in the way that I described above, certain that no one is looking for you, because those that would be moving mountains to find you actually gave you to the people who now hold you prisoner. That is what the children of Scientology lived with and are currently living with today. Experiences that many of us had as children, s'mores by a campfire on a weekend camp trip, vacations to Disney World, trips to the beach, summer parties, birthday parties, dad teaching you how to drive, your very first date. All those rites of passages that we take for granted. Many of the children of Scientology had none of these things. Instead, they had hours of labor building things with no instruction, no safety precautions. Some were made to sit emotionless while some pedo recounted his or her latest child conquest. Some of these children were SA'd and unable to tell anybody what happened to them. Or if they did, they were blamed for pulling it in, being told that the actions that happened against them were their fault. Some were beaten almost to death with no one to go to for help. Having their father repeatedly SA them because the church sent the only protection they had from that monster away and left them in his care. One was severely injured in an accident, lost both arms, only to be thrown away like some damaged toy that they no longer had any use for. They were forced to live on the streets on their own with nowhere to go and no one to turn to. Another, actually quite a few, were taken from a hospital they were born in, not with loving parents and siblings and maybe the puppy dog or kitten, but given over to a baby factory where they were denied the loving touch of another person. They were left lying in their own excrement, bathed by being dipped in vats of dirty bathwater used by hundreds of other babies just like them. like being run through a farmer's sheep dip line. This is the life of some children of Scientology. There were the lucky ones who knew their parents loved them, who got to see their parents or parent on a weekly or bi-weekly basis for a few hours before returning to the ranch, where they were forced to perform hard labor, maybe given some remedial education. They learned to read. The lives I have described above are the actual lives of children that were born into Scientology, not mine. These children, now adults, escaped and are beginning to find their voices. As adults and victims, they are speaking out about the abuses they suffered in the hands of the Church of Scientology. Recently in Los Angeles, there was a very special weekend where these children, now known as second, third, and fourth gens, came together to protest the Scientology and its abuses. With them, they brought a scroll of 129 names of children who grew up in Scientology and escaped and are now speaking out. That scroll stretched almost 75 feet. There have been many names added to that list since that weekend. I believe the last number I heard was 150 names. And it's still growing. They speak not for themselves, but for hundreds, maybe thousands of child victims who are too afraid or too damaged to speak for themselves. They speak for children that are trapped in the same hell that they lived with. Also included in that list were the names of children who are no longer with us. Mainly because the damage done to them by Scientology was too great for them to live with. And just so you know, many of those that we watch on YouTube, that we love and adore, came so very, very close to making that same final decision. You don't have to believe me. I never was in Scientology, nor did I ever have to live in the conditions that I just talked about. Find out for yourself. Do the research. Ask Serge Del Mar at Literally Serge about how at 12 years old, 12, he had to sit across a desk, emotionless, unable to leave, and ask for details, minute details, from a monster who sat in his underwear, shirt open, and gloated and gloried in the description of his essay of a child. Ask Liz Ferris, almost beaten to death as a child, who was told by Scientology and believed for 20 years that her father was dead. Only within the last 6 months, she discovered that he's alive and that he wants to leave. But he's being held behind the spiked gates and razor-wired walls of a church. And at almost 70 years old, is being forced to dig ditches. Ask Kelly Copter, who at age 6 was declared a suppressive person. And her parents, her family, was told by the church that they should send her away to another family. Her father performed an exorcism, his own version of it, on her to get rid of the bad thetans. At 16, she was thrown out of her home, disconnected from her family, and forced to live basically on the streets. Ask Jamie Mustard about how, as a newborn, he was given over to the church and raised in a baby factory and left only with the very basic of education. He is now an artist and a writer. These are but a few of the names of former children of Scientology who are speaking out and telling their stories of abuse and neglect, of child trafficking and exploitation. Recently became popular to ask, where is Shelley Miscavige? That question became a catchphrase for internet memes, celebrities, award shows, television shows. What we should be asking instead is, where is law enforcement? Where's Child Protective Services? Where are the judges? And most importantly, where are the children? Are we as a society willing to turn our eyes away? Turn them away from the ugliness and allow the children to continue to be exploited, trafficked, and abused by this entity that hides behind a religious 501c3 status? Can we, as a caring and compassionate society, simply brush it off? It's not affecting us, so it's none of our business. For me, the answer to those questions is, oh, hell no. See or leave them kids alone. Hey, see or leave them kids alone.